Okay, I want to talk about what happens now when you take your hot food out of the oven and put it in the cool air around. So we're going to imagine you did something like cook a steak. So the center of the food is at some temperature T star, which if you're cooking a steak is 60 degrees or 65 degrees, depending on how you like your steak. And the outside of the steak is at a temperature of T oven, which is the temperature of the oven. You then take your food, you put it in the cool air. So at room temperature, air is at a temperature of 23 degrees Celsius or so, and so your food is going to cool down. The heat is going to go from the food to the air, and that will cause it to cool down. The thing is, though, that the time that it takes for it to cool down takes a long time because the thermal conductivity of air is about 20-fold smaller than that of food, and so it takes much longer for it to cool down than it does to heat up. And the consequence of that is that not much heat is actually lost at all, so we can just erase these arrows. And the food basically contains all of the thermal energy that it has. So you remember in the first week of this course we talked about thermal energy, and it's pretty much the case that the food contains all of its thermal energy. And the consequence of that is that this temperature profile in the food that is set there originally, all of the heat of this is going to stay in, but now within the food, of course, the hot temperature is going to flow towards the cold temperature, because remember we said that heat always flows from hot to cold, and so what's going to happen is that over time, this thing is going to start to flatten out, and the temperature profile is going to go from this orange one, where there's hot and cold, to basically a flat one, which looks like this. Where the temperature is basically constant, where this temperature, where the area under this curve, that is the total heat that's contained in the food, is the same as the area under this original curve. That's basically what's going to happen. And now the sort of interesting thing about this is that where you've now carefully cooked your food to try to cook it at this target temperature, you'll notice that the food is now all higher than your target temperature, which you wanted to cook it at, which means that the food is now overcooked. So this is particularly a problem if you're cooking food which doesn't have a hole in it. So a chicken has a hole in it, and so it's a little bit better at doing this than it is something like a steak, or something without a hole in it. And so you have to be careful when you cook a steak to actually not cook the center quite to the target temperature, go a little bit below that, so when you take it off the grill or out of the oven, then it will achieve the perfect temperature.